Yo, what's good YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. My name is IFrostBolt. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 tips on how to go flawless inside of Trials of Osiris. My goal is to share some of my experience and advice to help you get some wins and potentially complete that card so that you can get your flawless. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Sitting at number 10 is going to be armor stats. If you're a Titan or a Warlock, stop running 100 mobility, okay? You're not going to be Sonic the Hedgehog. That's only for hunters so that they can get their dodge back. On that note, if you're playing Titan, try to spec into resilience a little bit, maybe 5 is fine. Warlock, there's no excuse. You should be running 100 recovery. On that topic of recovery, I suggest running at least 9 recovery or max because that is the ideal way to play the game inside of PvP in my honest opinion. When it comes to getting into gunfights, the last thing you want is to stay one shot for a very long time instead of having your health back. Because if you're one shot and you're just sitting there waiting to recover, you're not actively engaging and somebody else can just come by in and clean you up. So very important stat. The other one that I highly recommend that you focus on is your intellect. So intellect, I recommend running at least 7 to 8 because people wait for supers all the time. Supers can clutch rounds and they can win games. Very important. Other stats are the discipline. Also pretty good. Gotta have those grenades to clutch up certain situations in a gunfight to stop reses. The next tip on my list is the number 9, and that is how to beat the meta. And the first thing you need to do is understand the meta. What is hot that weekend and what is hot in that current season? Let's take for example sniper rifles or people sitting back a lot and just pre-aiming with a sniper rifle. You might want to adapt and use a sniper of your own or just use a pulse rifle, scout rifle to try to hit them across the map. If you can't really combat that, then don't peek the lane too much, be patient, try to find different angles. Let's go ahead and use a different example. Is shadow dive too hot? Are you running into that a lot? You might want to reconsider next time you chase down a hunter because the last thing you want is for him to come around the corner and just shadow dive on top of you. Instead, just be a little bit patient, kind of try to bait it, pretend that you're gonna push and instead just back off. Don't let him hit you with the grenade. Let's see, what's another example? You're trying to chase down an Icarus Dawnblade. Just remember, if you see him split, he does have that ability that lets him close the gap and get back to his teammates right away. So things like that are very important to consider. Are people using handheld supernova close range as shotgun battles? Well, hey, keep your range, backpedal a little bit more. Use the radar to your advantage. Make it seem like you're trying to get closer so that they start to push you with a shotgun, but instead you're actually gonna backpedal and say, hey, no, I'm gonna shut you down with my primary. Sitting at the number 8 spot is what guns to use. Often people will tell you to run the meta, run a hand cannon shotty, or whatever is hot that current season. You may go to Trials Report and try to take a look at the weapons and see what's the best gun. You may see Vex Missile Class and consider using it. Well, I'm gonna tell you, yes, that can help you a lot, but there's also another tip that you might have to consider, and that's running whatever you're most comfortable with. Do you have a trusty pulse rifle that you feel like it gives you a huge confidence boost when it comes to playing against other guardians? You know, if you take that pulse rifle and you feel like you can win your 1v1 gunfights more often than not, then sometimes it's better to do that. I often tell the carries that I play with to just run whatever they're comfortable with. They can be a hunter, and in my head I might think, yeah, shadow dive is really good and I feel like you can get a lot of kills with it, but I also know if this guy can play to his full potential with a loadout he's comfortable with, he can provide more to the team. Next up, we have number 7, and that is how to beat the unbeatable. When I say this, I want you to think about supers. Oftentimes, we see them as ways to get free kills, or if the enemy team pops them, we think it's game over. While that may be true, there is ways to counter. You just have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of every super. I'm going to give you 3 categories. The roaming supers based on melee kills, the roaming supers that have throwables, and then there's the supers that do panic pops. Let's go ahead and start with the roaming supers that do melee based attacks, and let's use Striker Titan as an example. What are the strengths? If the Titan can get close, it's closed areas, everybody's close range, he can just go crazy and attack everybody. What are some weaknesses? Open spaces where the enemy can just run away, get away from him, and just create some distance. So if you have a Striker Titan coming at you, what do? Use the outside, predict them coming towards a certain lane, and just team shot with your primaries. If you have special, even better. Your sniper teammate can hit a body shot, maybe a headshot. Your shotgunners can get a really good shotgun blast to get rid of all its health. Things like that to consider. Now, if it's a roaming super that has throwables, use close areas where they have no really space to play around with and there's a bunch of corners. Let's take Domblade for example. One of my favorite ways to outplay Domblades is using corners. If you peek shot around a corner, you can bait a Domblade shot and it's going to hit the corner because it's going to curve towards that wall. So that's one way. Now, when it comes to panic supers, those are a little bit tricky to play against, but there is a way to outplay them. You just have to kind of predict it. If there's a Revenant, good luck. But anyways, no, real talk. If there's a Revenant super, you can kind of just assume he's going to pop as soon as you see him, and you want to just create some distance immediately. You want to just jump away from the current situation you're at and go somewhere else immediately. Maybe use a corner or a wall to make that super hit the wall instead of you. So things like that to consider. Next up, we have the 6th tip, and that is saving your supers and when to pop your supers. I often seen many teams use their supers all in one round in order to win, when in reality you don't need to do that. I would recommend saving at least one super so that whenever you get to the 4th round, you can pop that and just secure the win. You got to close it out, man. All right. Another thing is, whenever you get a pick, there's already one player down on the other team and you have everybody alive. Just use team shots and your grenades in order to close the round out. There's no need to pop a super when it's a 3v2. Now, if the game is pretty close and it's a battle of momentum, the enemy team pops a super, but your team has a pretty good counter for that super, then you can pop in order to shut them down. Don't let them build momentum and do not let them generate orbs, okay? Another situation I want you to think about is you are the last player alive, you have your super and it's a 1v3. Sometimes the best thing to do is just save your super for the next round and just come back stronger, okay? Even if I'm in a 1v3 situation, I'm going to be very hesitant on popping my super to try to clutch, because if I fail, I just lost a really good opportunity for us to get a free kill in the next round when I have my teammates up. But you might want to consider popping if you can get a pick, maybe get a double down and there's just a 1v1 situation. Yeah, pop that, finish the round, get that win, and celebrate the clutch factor. Now, another thing you don't want to do is take your super to the next DLC, all right? Even if everything is going bad for you, it seems like you lost already and there's no way to come back, do not save your super. Just pop it, see if something happens. You never know, you might get lucky. The next tip might be pretty confusing to many players because it comes down to experience and playtime when it comes to playing PvP maps. So the tip is how to play map control. Now, you need to understand inside of Trials of Osiris, sometimes there is an overtime flag that spawns up. Now, that overtime flag will probably be in the middle of the center of the map, and you want to try to dominate that type of space, all right? Keep in mind, where does the power ammo spawn? You want to be able to control that area with grenades, your team shots, your special weapons. Whenever the power ammo is coming up for that round, it's just one round, but that one round can win you the game, okay? Other things, what are the power areas? Where does your team excel at? Do you need high ground so that you can use your snipers? Do you need to be close range and close quarters to use your shotguns? You want to try to play around that part of the map. Do you have sidearms? Let's say you're running double sidearms. Do not sit outside of the map. That's just bad map control. You're asking yourself to get outranged. Things like that to consider. The next tip is something that you can use to your advantage to just be a better Destiny player overall, and that is when to use your abilities. If you get in a situation where you get a pick, you win a 1v1 gunfight, but you have to back off because you're weak and your teammates are not there to support you, but you notice the enemy team is starting to close in, they're going to get a revive, maybe they pop a barricade. Well, this is the time to use your abilities. Use a solar grenade, maybe a lightning grenade or a pulse grenade to stop them from getting that revive. Put some damage in, keep them back. You want to keep those numbers down so that whenever you guys are all healed up, you can come together and just close the round out. Is somebody one shot around the corner? Is there a shotgun player you can't get him to push and he's just stuck there? Use your abilities, all right? Your melees are just kind of self-explanatory. You get in a shotgun battle, you get close range, use it. But your grenades, you definitely want to have more of a thought process when it comes to them. Don't just throw them. Don't just waste them. They're very important to your toolkit, so take advantage of them. Sitting at number 3 is when to push or when to run. It's very important to understand the flow of a match, especially the flow of any situation going on in your current Trials match. So let's take a scenario. You're a team of 3. Your 2 teammates, they go right side to hold hands, and then one player goes off for a flank by himself. He engages in a 1v1 gunfight, he's doing okay, but as time passes, he realizes there's more radar pings and his teammates are coming to help. When you notice that, it is time for you to run. You do not want to get team shot and die, then leave your teammates alone. Now let's go ahead and flip the situation around. You're the teammates holding hands and you notice your teammate that's going for a flank is starting to get collapsed on. You need to immediately engage and make a play off of that. If the enemy team is distracted trying to kill your teammate, then use him as bait and just shoot the other team from the back. Or, you can actively just engage them face to face and team shot them as they have their guard down. Other situations you might want to consider is when people are weak. If your teammate calls out that somebody's one shot in the corner, then you should probably have the shotgunner just try to fly in with his melee ability or his shotgun to try to clean that up and get some numbers going on the board. You can't be too scared. You can't be too safe sometimes. You got to take advantage when the enemy team is weak. If everybody's one shot, maybe you want to close in and try to just clean some players up, especially if there's somebody already down and there's a res on the floor. You want to make sure you control that space. Don't be scared. Don't back up. Don't let them get ground and just get a free revive, all right? The next tip is number 2, and this one can be a tricky one. It's when to get revives. So many times players get way too focused on reses and it can cost them the round. See this situation for example. You have a res that's not being guarded, so you decide to go for it, but your teammate's not on the same page. He goes for the final guy to try to win the round and he dies in the process. You get the res, but hey, it's still a 2v1 situation. The enemy team might get a super and can clutch the round when you could have just pushed with your teammate and 2v1 that player, increase your odds and just officially guarantee a win for yourself. Reses are important, but they shouldn't be your super main focus and your only play. Now, when it comes to getting reses, it's also very important to notice that players will often bait you to try to get a revive. You can use that to your advantage as well. If the enemy team is going for a res, you can use that as a way to nade it, get free shots on them and just kind of stop them, make them panic. Very important things to consider. Next up, I have an honorable mention, and that is watch my videos, watch my streams. I've been playing Destiny 2 PvP for many years, so I have developed many habits that allow me to excel when it comes to playing against other players inside of the Crucible. So it is very important to watch my videos, watch my streams, so that you can absorb some information, maybe catch some of my habits that I have when I play and use them yourself, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the final tip. It is one that I personally feel like I excel at, and it is a skill that I think you should adopt to increase your chances of going flawless. That tip is staying composed. If you don't win the first round, it's fine. It doesn't mean the enemy team automatically wins. If the enemy team wins 2 rounds and you have 0, relax. It doesn't mean you can't come back. You can make clutch plays, you can get lucky, anything can happen. Keep your head in the game. If your teammate starts to get impatient, they freak out, maybe, call it out. Tell them, relax, you've played together, or point out a situation where they made a good play so they could try to maybe repeat that. Now, do not get impatient if the enemy team is not pushing. That doesn't mean you should just run in, try to close the gap and be the one to engage. You're kind of just putting yourself in a disadvantageous situation. You can play their pace, sit back too, let them come to you, let them make the mistake, all right? So if your team is pushing a certain angle, it's not working out, and you guys are getting impatient, you keep trying to brute forces, stop, take a deep breath and try to change it up. You can rotate around the whole map. There's so many areas to play around, so just use the map to your advantage and stay composed. Keep your head in the game. You have officially made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. Those were my top 10 tips to help you go flawless inside of Trials of Osiris. I shared my experience and gave you some advice. I really do hope it helps. If you enjoyed the video and if it helped you in any way, make sure you drop me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys some other day.